All right, welcome everybody. Today we bring to an end this brief study we're calling The Kingdom in the Last Days. I can only imagine how many questions we've raised so far, but I hope that it's at least causing you to think differently from the way you've thought in the past and to re-examine some of these passages. And today's passage of scripture may be one of the most controversial of all, and we'll see if I can lead you along the path that I'm on. But at least for me, this is all making sense in light of what we saw in Daniel. If you haven't been with us this whole series and you happened onto this video or maybe the title or something got your attention, please go back and watch all the six leading up to this. You, in my opinion, you can't understand Matthew 24 without really being familiar with the terminology and the visions of Daniel. So I'm going to leave it there. So Matthew 23, 37, 38, we looked at this. But remember, he's just pronounced his woes on the Pharisees. And he says, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets and stone those who were sent to you. How often I have longed to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you would have none of it. O Jerusalem, my holy city, I wanted to protect you, but you don't want it. Look, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me from now on until you say, 'Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord.'" That's from Psalm 118. That means you're not going to see Jesus unless you proclaim him as the Messiah. That's what's going on in Psalm 118. All right. Now, as Jesus was going out of the temple courts and walking away, his disciples came to show him the temple buildings. He said to them, "Do you see all these things? I tell you the truth, not one stone will be left on another, all will be torn down." So we talked about this. This marvelous temple, Jesus says it's going to be destroyed. Their house will be left desolate. Now remember how important the word desolate is in Daniel's visions. It's also all over the place in Isaiah. When God talks about destroying Jerusalem and the temple, he uses the word desolate. It's not an accident that Jesus says, "Behold, your house is left to you desolate." He is self-consciously proclaiming the fulfillment of the prophecies of Isaiah and Daniel about the destruction of Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple. As he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, his disciples came to him privately and said, "Tell us, when will these things happen? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" Again, putting together all the predictions of Daniel. They're asking what will be the sign that he is coming not to earth, but he's coming before the Ancient of Days to receive his kingdom in heaven. And when will be the end of the age? The end. All of those things we saw in Daniel about the end, the end, the end. The destruction of the sanctuary or the temple is associated with the end that Daniel spoke of. So when Jesus says the temple's going to be destroyed, they start putting it together and realize, oh, he's going to come into his kingdom and the temple is going to be destroyed. That's going to happen. The coming to get his kingdom is going to happen in the clouds of heaven. So how do we know this is happening? Jesus answered, "Watch out that no one misleads you. For many will come in my name saying, 'I am the Christ,' and they will mislead many." So Jesus is gone and people are showing up saying, "I'm the Messiah. I'm here. Follow me." You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Make sure you are not alarmed, for this must happen, but the end is still to come. What do wars have to do with anything? Well, there were lots of wars in Daniel. So the disciples know that the sign of his coming into his kingdom means there are wars, because we saw that all through Daniel. Wars from the kings of the south and kings of the north. The great king who rises up, who makes war against the saints. So Jesus wants his disciples to know there are going to be wars, there are going to be rumors of wars, but that's not the end yet. For nation will rise up in arms against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. So it's getting close. That's what birth pangs mean. If you are a woman who's been pregnant or been a husband who's seen a woman pregnant, you know when those contractions start. And you have the Braxton Hicks, the fake contractions, but they feel like the real ones for a while. But once those contractions really start to get in motion, you know the time is near. You haven't delivered yet, but it's getting close. Then they will hand you over to be persecuted and will kill you. He's talking to his disciples. And he just told the Pharisees that they were hypocrites and just like the forefathers, because they're going to persecute Jesus's prophets. That's these guys. That's the apostles. He says, you're going to be hated and persecuted by all because of my name. Then many will be led into sin, and they will betray one another and hate one another. Many false prophets will appear and deceive many. And because of lawlessness will increase so much, the love of many will grow cold, but the one who endures to the end will be saved. Remember Daniel? Those whose names are written in the book will escape from the coming wrath and distress. The ones whose names are written in the book are those who endure to the end. Their love does not grow cold. They don't pursue lawlessness and sin. They remain true even through the persecution. And this gospel of the kingdom, this good news of the kingdom, will be preached throughout the whole inhabited earth as a testimony to all the nations, and then the end will come. I think we looked at this in our Roman study, but let me just pull this up here. I should have had it prepped. Sorry, I didn't think about it now. Because it sounds like, and people use that for world evangelism, that the second coming is not going to occur until we've completed the Great Commission and the gospel goes out. That's not what he's talking about. Look here what Paul says to the Colossians. Having heard of your faith in Christ Jesus and love that is for the holy ones, the saints, Daniel 7. Because of the hope that is laid up for you in the heavens, which you heard beforehand by the word of the truth of the good news, which has come to you as also in all the world. By the time that Paul writes to the Colossian church, he is comfortable saying the gospel has come in all the world. Jesus said this gospel will be preached throughout the whole inhabited earth. Does that mean it came all the way over here to the Americas? I don't think so. I think the reference is the first century people, which Paul was able to say because he almost single-handedly accomplished this. All throughout the Mediterranean region, he preached the gospel. It had reached the whole Roman Empire, at least the big cities. Then the end will come. The end of the age. The end of the pre-kingdom of Christ kingdoms. So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken about by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Not the reader of Matthew. Jesus said this. Let the reader of Daniel understand. Let those in Judea flee to the mountains. What is this abomination of desolation? It's the thing that's going to make the city desolate. When you see the thing that's going to make the city of Jerusalem desolate, then those in Judea must flee to the mountains. Did I have Luke? Oh, I thought I had Luke. Oh, there it is. Luke's version says this. Similar language through here. But instead of saying when you see the abomination of desolation, look what he says. When you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation has come near. You see that? Luke is not writing for a Jewish audience. He's writing to Theophilus. That's a Greek name. Would Theophilus have Daniel? Maybe, maybe not. But he has Jesus saying, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies. What is the abomination of desolation here? The armies, the Roman armies coming and surrounding Jerusalem, ready to make it desolate. Well, the Jews to whom Matthew was writing would have understood the abomination of desolation is that which makes Jerusalem desolate. When you see it, get out of Dodge. When you see those armies, those Roman armies, get out of Dodge. Those in Judea must flee to the mountains. The one on the roof must not come down to take anything out of his house. You won't make it. You'll get killed. The one in the field must not turn back to get his cloak. The armies are likely to take you out. Woe to those who are pregnant, those who are nursing their babies in those days. You know how hard it is, those of you with kids? You know how hard it is to pack up and go to the grocery store with a bunch of kids or being pregnant? How hard would it be to flee for your life to escape the Roman armies when you're pregnant or nursing a child? What an awful thing. This is, Paul writes to the church at Corinth and says, because of the distress coming on the land, it's better not to get married. I don't think that's intended to be an ongoing admonition, but at the time of that kind of distress, it's better not to be married. Pray that your flight may not be in winter or on a Sabbath. Everything will be closed on a Sabbath in Jerusalem. And in the winter, it's just harder to travel on foot. For then there will be great suffering unlike anything that has happened from the beginning of the world until now or will ever happen. This sounds a lot like Michael's words to Daniel, doesn't it? Where was it here? There will be a time of distress unlike any other from the nation's beginning up to that time. Remember, this is what Michael said to Daniel. That when this time comes, it's going to be distress unlike any other from the nation's beginning. Jesus says there will be great suffering unlike anything that has happened from the beginning or ever will happen. He grabs almost the same phrasing from Daniel and adds this. If this is talking about the second coming, why does he add the ever will happen? Anyway, that doesn't prove anything, just an interesting question. And if those days had not been cut short, no one would be saved. Isn't that interesting? Like the distress was declared and then they were cut short so that some could be saved. For the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. This sounds to me like That idea of those whose names are written in the book, they will escape. Right? At that time, your own people, this is again Michael speaking to Daniel, your own people, all those whose names are found written in the book will escape. Sounds like Jesus is describing the same kind of thing. For the sake of those elect, those whose names are written, these days are going to be cut short so they can escape and get out of there. And that the Romans won't hunt them all down and kill them. Then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Messiah, or there he is, do not believe him. For false messiahs, false prophets will appear, perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. Remember, I've told you ahead of time. So then if someone says to you, look, he's in the wilderness, do not go out. Or look, he's in the inner rooms, do not believe him. For just like the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so the coming of the Son of Man will be. If you've been with us, you know this phrase, the coming of the Son of Man, is not the Son of Man coming to earth. It's the Son of Man coming to the Ancient of Days to receive a kingdom that will be given to the saints, the holy ones. But remember that fourth beast is going to do battle. One of the horns is going to do battle against the saints until the Ancient of Days renders a verdict against that beast, and he's killed in favor of the saints. So there's going to be persecution against the saints. Jesus just told them. And that fourth beast has to be defeated. He has to be judged, rather. And that's going to happen when the Son of Man comes to get his kingdom. And here, there is at least some association with the fall of Jerusalem. Seems to me like the timing of all this is in the same period. The 490, the 77s decreed for the people of Daniel, the Israelites. That's going to culminate in the desolation of the sanctuary and the city. The end of the Old Covenant era. The final curses of the Old Covenant being poured out upon the unbelieving Jews of the first century. Along with that, the fulfillment of the 4 successive kingdoms, the final one of which is Rome, and the great king of Rome who exalts himself up above all the others, and he treats the holy ones poorly, but eventually he is defeated. And that's when the Son of Man takes his place as king. He receives his kingdom and renders the verdict, the Ancient of Days renders the verdict against the fourth beast, which is Rome. The Old Covenant is over, and that ushers in the kingdom of the saints. He says, wherever the corpse is, this is Jesus again in Matthew 24, wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. Now that is a phrase that is used many times in the Old Testament prophets, but especially, I think, in the prophecy of Ezekiel regarding Gog and Magog. If you get this, you're going to read Revelation very differently than you ever have before. Ezekiel 39, on that day I will assign Gog a grave in Israel. It will be the valley of those who travel east of the sea. It will block the way of the travelers. There they will bury Gog and all his horde. And they will call it the valley of Hamon-Gog. For 7 months Israel will bury them in order to cleanse the land. All the people of the land will bury them. It will be a day of memorial for them on the day I magnify myself, declares the sovereign Lord. They will designate men to scout continually through the land, burying those who remain on the surface of the ground in order to cleanse it. They will search for 7 full months. This is going to be a massive slaughter. When the scouts survey the land and see a human bone, they will place a sign by it until those assigned to burial duty have buried it in the valley of Hamongog. A city by the name of Hamona will be there. They will cleanse the land. As for you, son of man, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Tell every kind of bird and every wild beast, assemble and come. Gather from all around to my slaughter that I am going to make for you, a great slaughter on the mountains of Israel. You will eat flesh and drink blood. You will eat the flesh of warriors and drink the blood of princes of the earth, the rams, the lambs, the goats, bulls, all of them fattened animals of Bashan. Where the corpse is, there the vultures will gather, Jesus says. This is going to be a massive slaughter of the inhabitants of Jerusalem. The sign of the coming of the Son of Man to his kingdom is the Roman armies surrounding Jerusalem. And the death number is going to be huge. So run. If your name is written in the book, you will believe Jesus' warnings and you will flee for your life and escape the wrath, because God has not destined them for wrath. But those who do not believe, those whose faith grows cold, they're going to stay and be slaughtered by the Romans. Immediately after the suffering of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven will be shaken. I've been over this in other contexts. Go read Isaiah 13. There, God describes the fall of Babylon with the same language. This is not talking about the sun actually ceasing to shine. This is not talking about stars actually falling. This is language that describes what happens when there's a great battle in the heavenlies and God brings a nation to judge another nation. This happened. This is the Romans coming upon Jerusalem in 70 AD. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven. Some of your translations say in the sky. It's the word that can be translated in heaven or sky. Based on Daniel 7, I think it's clear it's in heaven. The sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven. This is the sign that the Son of Man is receiving his kingdom. And all the tribes of the earth will mourn because they're going to be slaughtered. They will see the Son of Man arriving on the clouds of heaven with great power and glory. The Son of Man is receiving his kingdom. You will know, disciples, you will know that Jesus is receiving his kingdom as the Son of Man when you see Jerusalem destroyed by the Roman armies. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet blast, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Learn this parable from the fig tree. Whenever its branch becomes tender and puts out its leaves, you know it is summer. So also you, when you see all these things, know that he is near, right at the door. I tell you the truth, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Jesus is talking to a group of men who live in a generation. And he says, I'm telling you the truth, men. This generation, the generation that is present now, will not pass away until all these things take place. Friend, this is not a prophecy of something that's in our future. It's almost 2,000 years in our past. Everything Daniel saw came true. and what Jesus predicted, the fall of Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple, it happened. I'm convinced Daniel in Matthew 24, this may be the most, I was going to say devastating. That's kind of going the wrong way, but the greatest vindication and verification of Christianity there is. Because we have historical documentation that within a generation of Jesus saying this, Jerusalem was destroyed and the temple was burned down. And the good news is that means from that point forward, the Son of Man has been reigning and the kingdom belongs to his saints. That's us. You didn't know this before, but this is why I say so often in our chat when I welcome you, welcome saints. We are the recipients of the kingdom from Daniel. It's our kingdom. He's building his kingdom. He's conquering all the other nations. This stone that's growing into a mountain is going to cover and fill the earth. Be joyful. Be hopeful. Take on the forces of evil. Pray for the captain of the hosts of heaven to send his armies to wipe out the Prince of America, the Prince of Canada, Mexico, and Russia, wherever you are. This is all really good news. All right, well, I know there are probably questions. Here's what I'm going to do. Tomorrow's Friday. We'll do Freeform Friday. I'll be back live with you on Monday. If I get a lot of questions, especially on this video, if you want to put questions on this video in the comments afterward, if I get enough that I think I should spend a time of Q&A, then on Monday we'll do a live Q&A and I'll interact with some of your questions. If I don't get much, then we'll get back to Romans. So we'll have to wait and see. Either way, I just urge you, go back, read Daniel, study it carefully, slowly, again and again and again. Go through Matthew, watch these videos again. I think you're going to see these terms repeated again and again in the New Testament. And now you're going to understand, oh, this is fulfilling what Daniel spoke of. The king and the kingdom have come. The last days are 2,000 years ago. It's a new era. It's good. All right. Have a great day. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow.